Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. We're talking about nonsense here, of course. It is 20 to 6 on a Thursday. This will be the last time we do the FiveStack at 5:30 from Monday. It'll be on at 3 p.m. Eastern time in the afternoon. That's 12 noon in the Pacific Coast, or wherever you might be. It'll be in between those time zones. We really appreciate your viewing, and we hope you'll join us at this very new time. It's going to be very exciting in an earlier time slot. I get to wake up earlier. We get to finish work a little bit earlier.
You know what that is? That's soft passive aggressivism right there. I get to wake up earlier. What you're doing is that you're protesting through a positive message where you're trying to manipulate me into feeling bad. Shalev.
I'm not trying to manipulate you into feeling bad. I'm excited about waking up earlier.
To see me earlier. You get to hang out with me.
No,
like it's like 2 hours early.
Who doesn't like to hang out with you?
First, my ex-wife.
So you should maybe have bad wisdom there, but I did see that someone said your smile and your laugh is like sunshine to them, and that's very nice. Thank you. Whoever wrote that on the chat. I also watched you with Steve today, Steve Schmidt on the Substack Live. That was really good. That was really entertaining.
The warning. Dude, it was awesome. Like, I know who Steve Schmidt is, and so I get this this note in my DMs. You call them DMs on Substack?
They do,
a month and a half in. So I get a DM. It's like, hey, do you want to do a podcast about Canada and the pushback and how important Canada is to the rest of the world when it comes to defeating fascism? And I'm like, because you and I've been beating this drum for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, sure. He looks familiar. And then I went and looked him up. He's got like hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm like, he's that Steve Schmidt, the guy that helped John McCain turn his campaign around, the guy that helped Arnold Schwarzenegger get a second term as governor, the guy that was involved with Bush. I'm like, this is a smart dude. And the more reading I did on him, the more I'm like, we're aligned. I like this because the dude left the Republican Party, absolutely has a hate on for fascism, cannot stand Donald Trump. So we spent an hour spitting fire today, and he kind of got the full tour of Canada and what's going on. But I was amazed at how many Americans, including Steve, know the importance of Canada when it comes to democracy in America right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal. And I know we've got Canada in the FiveStack today with a couple of other subjects, 5 of the biggest stories that democracy-loving Canadians and Americans need to know about today. But it was a really educational hour that I spent with Steve at Steve Schmidt. The Warning is the name of his podcast. You can get it anywhere. I think it comes out tonight. It's also live on my Substack now. Really enjoyed it because you get that American perspective and you realize that Americans and Canadians are very much aligned. It's just a small segment of Americans and Canadians that aren't, and those people can all go fuck themselves. So it was a great podcast.
I have been saying that for a while. I have been.
You have, but I've been motoring past it.
Yeah, thanks for ignoring me. It's
a more pejorative language about Americans.
The first time I met Steve Schmidt was with Nicole Wallace, and the two of them walked into the CBS News boardroom. It was during the election campaign between John McCain and Barack Obama, and they had just decided to put Sarah Palin on the ticket, and she was tanking everywhere. And these two guys came in there, and I think they came in with a sense of moral responsibility to the Republic. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, she really is as bad as you think she is, and and she's ours, So what happened afterwards was this very interesting interview that Katie Couric did with Sarah Palin that sort of ended the McCain attempted presidency, because her interview was just shocking. You remember that? She couldn't remember which newspaper she had read, or because she hadn't read any. It was just it was a bit of a setup interview. It was in fact a gotcha interview. That was what she claimed it was at the time. But Steve Schmidt and Nicole were on the other side of that. They were the ones who helped push her over the edge. So and I thought that was remarkable.
He hated her, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, they all hated her because she was just tanking their efforts. Like she was, she was.
Yeah, if it wasn't for her, McCain might have won, right?
I don't know. I think if it wasn't for Bill Clinton, McCain might have won. But I think Bill Clinton came out swinging and really helped Barack Obama explain everything during that election campaign. And I think because of that, Barack Obama got to have a second term. We're all better for that. But of course, that gave us Donald Trump, which is what tonight's show is all about, because it's Trump Central in the top 5 stories of the day. These are your top 5s, ladies and gentlemen. Number 5.
Great segue, by the way. Well done.
Thank you.
Pro.
Thank you.
You're pro.
I try to model myself on you. The number 5 story is about Canada and about Trump at the same time.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of stories. Yesterday, Trump said that he does not want Canada involved in the American auto industry at all. Which is a hell of a thing to say, because as many people know, there's plants that make parts and make cars that go across the border all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Canadian Prime Minister Mike Carney responded firmly today. He said this is to Trump, said, "This is Canada. We decide what happens." And then he warned Trump directly about retaliation. Then he went on to explain his whole theory of how he's going to, to make up the loss of $144 billion in trade that could be lost if these tariffs continue. And he's got a plan, which you'll explain to us later, I hope. But the truth of it is, this is not necessarily terrible news for this to come back into the election right now, because Carney's margin leading Pierre Poilievre is actually shrinking. We've seen like a 2-point shrink, I think, in the last few days. So
yeah, it was like 5.6 down to 3.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
According to Nanos, Nick Nanos, yeah.
Yeah, so, but although there's definitely a tightening of the polls. That always happens as people get towards an election, but it makes people a little bit nervous. And Trump is actually doing a bit of an assist to Carney by putting it out there right now, because anytime the Prime Minister can stand up to Trump, hey, that's good times. That's better for him, because that'll make him look stronger and tougher.
Yeah. Every time he opens up his mouth, Mark Carney's approval rating goes up just a smidge, right? And depending on the polls that you look at, he's leading anywhere from 3.5 to 15.5. Internal polling in Ontario has him leading in Ontario by about 15.5 points. Most national polls don't have that. They've got it between 8 and 12, 6 and 10, et cetera, et cetera. But the last couple of days have been a boon for Mark Carney, the leader of the Liberal Party, who's running a very different campaign. He's not engaging in the ideology bullshit. He's not engaging in any of the identity politics stuff. It's about building Canada, building our infrastructure, turning Canada into an economic powerhouse, building that energy corridor across the country, revitalizing the energy corridor, building out shipping yards and ports of call in the Arctic so that we can own the Northern Passage and get better trading partners so we can move away from the United States. So Donald Trump had another fucking absolutely terrible day yesterday. He was asked first, and to your point, and we'll get to the automotive industry stuff first yesterday, he was asked why, if he's worried about the 12% drop in tourism, which Canada is leading the charge in. I think it's like $40 billion in damage to the U.S. tourism industry, wine industry, food and beverage industry, hotel industries, tourism industry. Flights into the United States down like 70 to 80%, depending on the airline you ask. Border crossings are down about 60% across the board. And a reporter asked him, they're like, "Hey, listen, is this bothering you?" He's like, "Nah, it's no big deal. It's just a little bit of nationalism. Let me explain." So then he said, "We don't need Canada. Let's just keep with that theme. You don't need Canada." California saw a 12% drop in tourists from Canada in February compared to the same month the year prior. Nationwide projections are worse. Overall, this is from my Substack post. You can go and read it on my Substack. Trump turned on Canada again yesterday, and it backfired spectacularly is the name of the title. 20% drop in Canadian visits to the United States in 2025. So far, just in travel, $3.4 billion in lost revenue. Tour bus operators, travel agencies, massive cancellations. U.S. bookings are down 90%, unprecedented slump, 12%, more like a $40 billion charge. The EU is following right behind Canada. Those numbers are plummeting off a cliff. Nobody is going to the United States anymore. So clearly, he doesn't need our tourism dollars and said everything's fine, which it's not. Then he went on to say, we don't need anything from Canada. Cars, lumber, energy, we have more than they do.
Really?
Let's go through that. Yeah.
Really?
Canada is the... I know.
I don't believe him. He's a liar. That guy's a liar.
Of course he is. He's full of shit. Canada is the largest supplier of U.S. energy imports, including crude oil, natural gas, electricity. In 2024, 63% of all U.S. crude imports came from Canada, up 38% from a decade earlier, 1.48 billion barrels. If they don't have that, they don't run cars. That's just how it fucking works. So much for not needing our oil. Let's move on to the supply chain. Does Canada need our supply chain? Yeah, absolutely. The number one destination for U.S. auto exports. The number one destination for U.S. auto exports. Who is it? Anybody? Bueller? Us.
Canada?
Guess
Canada
you
must be
don't need
Canada.
that. We'll just buy Canadian cars and European cars then, dickhead.
Well, that's because
Softwood lumber.
yeah.
What's
Go
that?
ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
softwood lumber. 23% of U.S. softwood lumber comes from Canada. A sudden stop of the Canadian lumber would drive housing costs through the roof, including critical minerals for EV batteries, nickel, aluminum, potash, uranium. 90% of America's potash for everything that they use to grow their crops comes from Canada, so they don't need that as well. Then he says, I'm working well with Canada. We're negotiating with them right now. There is zero negotiation going on between Canada and the United States. Same thing with China. Zero negotiation going on between Canada and China. He's running his mouth that, we're talking. Everything's great. He's not talking to anybody because everybody told him to go take a hike. So to your point, he can tell everybody that he needs nothing from Canada, including our cars. He can tell everybody he wants to bring car manufacturing back to Canada after we stole it, but he's lying. They need our cars. They need our potash. They need our energy. They need our oil. They need our lumber. They need everything that we have in terms of raw materials, or America will cease to fucking exist. And by the way, we didn't steal their automotive industry. I'll tell you what happened. Because the U.S. dollar started to take off post-war, they started to expand into Canada because they could build cheaper here. So they used us. They came up here and used our cheap labor, used our cheap dollar. And now because they've taken advantage, as Don Cherry says, they've come here for the milk and honey. And now Donald Trump is back in town. He wants to disintegrate a fully integrated automotive supply chain, which you can't do in less than 10 to 15 years. So my American friends, my Canadian friends, Zev Shalev, anybody that's listening, that man is so full of shit. It's no wonder he has to wear a diaper everywhere he goes.
I mean, you're absolutely right. A great summary, of course. Thank you so much. You know, the housing market is tanking in the United States. We saw those figures come out today. It's no longer speculation. We've actually got the data now. People are not buying houses. So sure, maybe you don't need the lumber if you're not going to build houses because no one's moving and because you got a housing market that's tanking because prices are so low. Maybe that's how you don't need the lumber. But in every other instance, you need the lumber. And Canada is where you get that lumber from. Same thing with steel, same thing with auto companies. They came begging Donald Trump this week, please don't give us those tariffs. He agreed, I believe, to not actually put on those tariffs. And then here we are again, we're threatening to get Canada outside of the auto business. It's just unconscionable that he keeps making these threats. Now, Carney, on the other hand, says we can give ourselves far more than Americans can take away. And this is why I think people don't really understand how important Carney's plan really is. It's because what he's saying is we're going to invest in ourselves. Yeah. We're going to invest in building an energy corridor. We're going to be investing in building a much stronger, sustainable economy that's going to give us jobs. We're going to take that hit that maybe we'll get by losing $144 billion in trade to the United States. And instead of destroying ourselves and hurting ourselves, we're going to invest in ourselves and make ourselves stronger and more resilient over the long term, which is the kind of thinking you want from a leader, and especially one who's an economist who can actually, back up what he's saying with the numbers. And he can back up what he's saying with the numbers. Yeah. So Donald Trump, on the other hand, he can't. He can't seem to make any sense of anything right now. You pointed out the two lies that he mentioned there. He's not talking to Canada. Our second story today, or the fourth story of the countdown today, is about how he's made up this complete lie about the fact that there are negotiations going on with China. Now, you and I have been saying on the show for the last few days, there are no talks with China. There are just none. There are no visible talks in China. I've checked every source. I've looked into this very deeply every day. I don't like to be wrong, but it's so this doesn't exist. Even though the president of the United States is out there saying, "Hey, we're having talks," it's actually not happening. The reality of it is, Beijing came out today and basically not only said, "Are there no talks?" but they laid out some pretty big demands. So the Chinese government has officially confirmed there are no trade negotiations taking place with the United States, directly contradicting President Trump's repeated claims that there were daily communications and imminent deals. So, but Beijing is now saying to the United States,
dude, and keep in mind, this is like the fifth time that's happened. Like, it happens every day. Someone's like, "Are you talking to China?" He's like, "We talk all the time. Might have talked this morning, might not have talked this morning."
He said
You
it
don't
today.
know. I'm
They
friends with
spoke
Xi.
this morning, and they didn't.
Then
They
China
didn't.
China's putting out fucking memes of fat Americans working in iPhone factories. That they're mocking them about it now. Anyway.
Well, I mean, the president can be believed for what he's saying. So, but the thing is, Beijing's actually come out very strongly. They're actually made it much more difficult for the United States. They're saying they want all these tariffs to completely disappear before they have talks. They want all these unilateral tariff measures, the cancellation of all these non-tariff measures, all these things. They want them completely off the table. Then they'll sit down and have a conversation with Washington. That's not going to happen. No. So, because he's too much. I don't know whatever you want to call him, but he's too much of a pig to give up on these points, and he's not going to because his ego's too big. This is really problematic, of course, because as Treasury Secretary Bessent said yesterday, this trade situation is not sustainable, even though he's the one who started it. He's basically saying there's currently an embargo between these two countries. And if we don't stop it now, we're going to have irreversible damage to the U.S. economy, maybe even a delinking of these two powerful economies. It's not good news for anybody in America that this trade war is continuing and that these two sides are digging in.
There's a video I just accidentally turned on. The video I was talking to you about, the Chinese AI video of a bunch of really heavy set Americans working hard in sweat factories. It's like, one of the things that I think Donald Trump, he miscalculates everything, right? Like, he doesn't ever play the tape forward, if you will.
Yeah.
And that is his biggest problem. His biggest problem is he lives in a silo. He believes that what he says is gospel. He thinks because he's got the largest military in the world, people are just going to kowtow to him. And what he didn't count on, a couple of things. Where it comes to Canada, he didn't count on the entire country just abandoning their ideologies for the past 3 years and just to go, okay, someone's coming to get us. It's like that family where you see two brothers fighting in the middle of a field and some stranger comes in to break it up and the two brothers turn, beat the shit out of the stranger so they can go back to beating the crap out of each other. That's who Canada is. That's who we are. We will fight with each other, but we'll protect each other so we can continue to fight with each other. So he didn't count on that kind of wacky Canadian unity.
You see, because I'd never even thought about that when I thought about Canada. I always thought about the just a very much softer, mushier, moosey kind of granola kind of Canada.
Fuck up here. No,
I didn't realize you guys actually go at it. But now I know.
No, we go at it pretty good, but we'll also protect each other to protect that right to go at it.
Yeah,
where he miscalculated with China is fascinating, and I've got a story up on my Substack today about this. And the timeline of him getting torched with China is incredible. February the 1st, 10% tariffs on all imports, 20 on China. February the 10th, China retaliates with 15 on U.S. coal, liquid natural gas, 10% on oil machinery. March 4th, Trump bumps Chinese tariffs another 20. March 10th, China slaps U.S. with another 20. March 10th, Trump goes nuclear, says 145 across the board. China hits back with 125. That was on April 10th. April the 11th, Trump exempts all electronics coming out of China, cuts, and then China's like, no problem. Thanks for the exemption. By the way, we're going to not just cut rare earth exports and suspend mail service. We're going to blockade you getting any rare earth and any mail from China. And then Trump the next day goes, yeah, I think we're going to lower some tariffs at some point with China. That happened yesterday, on the 22nd. China then called it bullshit and started mocking him mercilessly on social media. Now, what they didn't understand was that China doesn't have to appease its consumers, right?
No,
in America, you do.
He does. It's got they have a tough economy right now, and they do need their consumers to be sort of satisfied with their leadership.
Yeah, but if a consumer isn't satisfied, he starts making a stink, and he says, "I'm going to complain to the manager." They get disappeared pretty fucking quick.
They do. Right? Find a way of vanishing people there.
So, when you oppress a couple billion people over the course of 60 years. And 100 years, thousands of years. They're pretty well trained to go, okay, we'll eat the shit. And they will. They'll eat the shit. They won't eat the shit in America. So every time Trump tariffs them, Z laughs because he's a stone cold dictator. And he doesn't give a shit what happens to his people. He doesn't care about empty shelves because there's already empty shelves all across the country. He's like, how much worse can you make it? We're like a third world country that has an oligarchy like yours, but we have complete control over these people and they are totally subservient to us. In the United States, they had 5 million people up from 2 million show up to these hands-off weekend rallies to protest Trump and Doge and the fascist turn of the United States. Now, add every consumer, and America's a consumerist country, where if they don't get what they want, they don't just complain to the manager, they shoot the fucking place up. So now we're looking at a very different calculation for Donald Trump, where he's like, oh, I didn't count on that. Oh, I didn't count on China, being able to throw their entire population in jail if they complain that the bag of rice is too expensive or chicken's too expensive or there's no American chicken. Now, if there's no American chicken in America, right? Yeah. Or if iPhones are $5,000, $6,000,
they'll make their own.
They'll find a way into the West Wing. Like, I mean,
well, they have.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
They have found a way to the West Wing. Look, I mean, the other thing that's really working for, that was very funny, by the way. The thing that's really working for China here is that they are actually consolidating all their trade relationships around the world with our former trade partners. So they're signing a deal with Vietnam, and they've got, 44 other countries that are going to show up for their big BRICS conference in a couple of months. And some of them were our former allies, Saudi Arabia amongst them. These are big countries that have huge economies that are no longer thinking of the United States as their primary trading partner. But more than that, what's happening to the dollar and the constant sell-off of the US dollar that's continuing day after day after day, even though it climbed a little bit over the last couple of days. All that is really contributing to the impression now for the first time that the American economy is fallible. The American economy can collapse, that the US dollar isn't actually the safest thing in the entire world anymore. And, you can't really put a price on that. The price on that is so huge because you never get it back, for one thing. And China is walking away. This is an autocratic country, the worst of autocratic countries in the world, where there are no freedoms. And they are walking away looking like the good guys in all of this, as the American dollar, which has been a symbol of freedom and liberty and all good things around the world for so long, it is declining. So this is all working for them. They can let the clock run out in these 90 days. They can let it run out for longer than that. They know at the end of the day, it's going to work for them. And they don't care if Trump tanks. I mean, who cares if his approval ratings are in the toilet? For them, it works for them. It all works for them. The more chaos they have in the United States, the more pathetic Trump looks, the more incapable Trump looks, the better it is for them. They get to get the benefits. And this is the sad thing, is that we're sort of rewarding a country that is an autocratic country.
Yeah, and they just let them out of jail for free, right?
Yeah.
Obama, Bush to a lesser extent, Obama, Biden, not so much Trump, although Trump didn't do a whole bunch with China in that 4-year period during his first term. But America went to great lengths to work with international partners to isolate China and the Chinese Communist Party regime.
Remember the TPP?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was Obama's initiative to get a deal with all these other parties, with all these other countries.
Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yeah.
Who canceled it? Who canceled that? Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think, and so, you think about what his bullshit tariff war has done over the past, I don't know, month and a half? He's literally taking all the governors off of China and the Chinese Communist Party that were strategically put in place by global powers over the course of 20 years. Like that's how stupid this person is. And a lot of countries don't have any choice but to partner and to allow China out of that isolationist chamber that they've been put in by every country in the world for good reasons over the past 20 years. And that's really one of the shameful parts of this. I listened to David Frum talk to Rahm Emanuel about it. Rahm Emanuel is part of that boxing in and the isolation of China. And the insight that he gave was fascinating. I'd encourage everybody to go listen to David Frum's podcast with Rahm Emanuel. Is, again, we go to the butterfly effect of Trump's incompetence, right? Where, he's going to hurt allies and he's going to help perceived enemies. And this isn't him trying to help China. This is his incompetence, legitimately allowing China to help themselves on the world stage in a nuclear fashion, where they don't just bust out of an isolationist state. They become a state that everybody's going to so that they can salvage their economies, curate trade deals simply due to population and consumerism. Right, like it's just the truth. And so, when one superpower decides that they're no longer interested in propping up the free world, there are countries that rush into that vacuum. And I'll tell you this, Canada is one of them. The plan that Carney put together. And by the way, there's this thing going around now where people are blaming Mark Carney for not admitting that Donald Trump brought up making Canada the 51st state on their very one and only phone call, which he had after he won the Liberal leadership and cut ties with America.
What a stupid story.
It's such a bullshit story.
What is that story about? I mean, this is conservatives being like,
It's you didn't tell us that he mentioned the 51st state. He's like, Trump says a lot of shit. But the part that I think a lot of people are struggling with is we have to do business with China, and Canada is one of those countries. And when you pivot to, the job that Canada has done standing up to a bully, and then you think about a tweet that got put out yesterday by CTV News saying China offers to, quote, work with Canada to push back against Trump the bully. Mm-hmm. And you see all the people in the comments section or in the replies go, yeah, do it. You're like, hold it. History's pretty great fucking teacher. Like, we don't want to decouple from the budding dictatorship so that you can do business with an established, mature dictatorship. You want to continue to keep your eyes open and diversify those trade partners. But what Donald Trump has done has allowed those conversations to happen and those deals to be consummated, where the Chinese Communist Party, which imprisons, enslaves, and tortures people from around the world at whim, including their own people, beats the shit out of them anytime they want, any place they want, has them on social credit scores, legitimately. They've got social credit, digital ID, all the stuff that all the maggots hate. And all the people who have no idea that their phone is literally digital ID and it tracks them everywhere they go. You've upended the world order. That's what he did, and it was pure incompetence as to why and how he did it.
I would say it's either pure incompetence or it's coordinated. Maybe he isn't fully aware. Maybe he's so managed by the Russians and the Chinese that he's actually unaware that this is happening to him because he's so stupid. But I tend to believe he's more aware than unaware. And when you've got someone like Donald Trump, who's been friends with Chairman Xi for a very long time, who at one point had the Bank of China as one of his main tenants at Trump Tower, who got a loan from the Bank of China for $200 million at a time when no one else was going to give him a loan. $200 million. It's a lot of money. Who's got trademarks and other deals for all sorts of things for his family, leading all the way into, started in 2015, but all the way into now. They're still giving him new trademarks all the time for everything from brothels to steaks. I don't know, whatever it is he's selling over there. This guy's very aware that his bread is buttered by the Chinese on a personal level. And especially when you look at crypto and you look at his interest in Bitcoin, that is, largely financed by Binance and people around Binance and those groups around Binance. That means he's still very heavily invested in by China. And more than that, if you really think about his current value, it's all theoretical, right? He's a billionaire now. Why? Because of the meme coins and his investments in these crypto efforts and this media, Trump Truth social media company that he's got. Who funds all that? China funds all that. So, he knows where the money is coming from. The money is coming to him from China. And that's why he's got such a huge conflict of interest. And that's why he is probably not surprised by what's happening right now. My guess is he said he knows exactly what's happening right now because that's what they told him to do. And he's doing what they told him to do.
You think he's legitimately taking it in the teeth, publicly getting embarrassed by Xi and China because he's been told to
he has
sit
no
there
pride.
And eat it, and then
he
all
has
of a
no
sudden,
shame.
Maybe
He'll do anything. He has this guy is just in it for the money. He's so sleazy and so corrupt. Always has been. This is the way he is. He doesn't care about that. He'll go and say whatever he wants. Whatever you want him to say, he'll say it. He doesn't care if he kills people. He doesn't care if he hurts people. If people go homeless in the streets, he doesn't care at all about any of that as long as he gets his check at the end of the day, because that's all he cares about, the fame and about the money. Those are the two things, you know? So for me, I mean, I know I say this a lot more definitively than other people, but he is owned by China in the same way that Putin is somehow owned by China as well. You know, they're
I
all
wonder if this is
beholden.
part. I wonder. There's three different options here: incompetence, right?
Yeah.
Collusion,
Yeah.
and the other one is, his effort to try and bury China, who has so much on him, or his effort to move away from China. But I don't buy the last one. It's one of two, right?
Yeah, I
It's
mean, he
one of
makes
the
all his
first two.
money. He's made
Yeah.
billions of dollars just off China. People really need to spend some time understanding how Truth Social, that company that is worth billions of dollars, it really isn't worth anything, but it's somehow valued at billions of dollars, how it was funded initially. It was funded by Chinese investors who basically gave it to him as a thank you for the previous time they were in power, you know? So yeah, we just have to like really understand that. And you remember the first time Trump went to China? Do you remember that first visit in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
She gave him the full VIP treatment, the most exorbitant, extravagant welcome you've ever seen any president of the United States get in China. I mean, he got to go to the Forbidden City. No one really gets to go to the Forbidden City in the way he got to go to the Forbidden City.
Well,
He
so
had
it's not just a clever name.
no, it's not just a clever name, but it's, and he had thousands of people show up and welcome him like he was some sort of hero. And the truth of it is, this was just a big coup for Xi, because he got his man inside the White House. And, by the way, his granddaughter, Ivanka's daughter, sings in perfect Mandarin. She serenaded Xi when he came to Mar-a-Lago. The relationships between the former wife of Rupert Murdoch, Wendy Deng, who is clearly a Chinese spy, and Ivanka and Jared, they're very, very close to each other, have been for many, many years. And then you've got all the stuff about Steve Bannon and Guo Wengi. There's a lot of China in the orbit there. Navarro is another Chinese sort of, thought to be a Chinese asset. So you've got all these people surrounding Donald Trump who are like full-on Chinese operatives, and the people around them are also all Chinese operatives. At the end, it's sooner or later you have to call it what it is. If it walks like a duck, it is a duck, and in this case, I think it is. So that's why I think this is not. He's not dumb. He's not a stupid guy. He knows where the money is coming from. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's selling out America for his own personal profit, and he doesn't give a shit about it.
Well said. I don't disagree. I think that's probably the most plausible option.
Right, it's terrible, but that's the most likely option. Is often the right one, and even though it's a terrible one, it seems to be in this case that's the one. All right, the next story on our where are we? We are at. Hi, I lost my place. Sorry, I get so excited. We are at 3. So there's obviously a fight between China and the United States over tariffs, but there's also been this dramatic new evidence of what happened with Treasury Secretary Bessent and Elon Musk last week, when they had like a WWE kind of moment. Apparently, by all accounts, according to the new reporting, these two guys went at each other almost physically in earshot of President Trump, because they were fighting over who was going to run the IRS. It turned out to be a pretty big fight. Elon Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had a heated confrontation in the West Wing last week. The shouting match was so intense that an aide had to physically separate them. Their fight was over who would lead the IRS. Musk backed Gary Shapley, and Bessent wanted Michael Faulkender, who landed up being in the position. During the argument, Musk reportedly called Bessent a Soros agent and a failed hedge fund manager, I guess. Bessent ultimately prevailed, with Shapley being removed from his position just for 72 hours after he got in that job. And Faulkender is now the 5th IRS chief since January. It all speaks to the massive mess inside the IRS, the massive mess of the executive in general, because they can't decide who should lead what agency. But also there is infighting, quite serious infighting, as Elon Musk reaches almost the end of his tenure, as people are beginning to say he is finally going to leave.
Yeah. They had that earnings call the other day where he admitted that he was going to be leaving Doge in May. He also said that the radical left lunatics were lighting his Teslas on fire. That's apparently not true. It's a bunch of people that he wanted. He's like, go light my Teslas on fire. We'll blame the radical left lunatics. That'll be a lot of fun. Are you surprised? You got a bunch of egomaniacs in a room. And the other thing is, and I think this is really important, is why the fuck was Elon Musk picking the director of the IRS?
Well, because he wanted the data. He wanted the
Well,
data.
yeah, of course he wanted the data, but he also, if I've learned anything about his time with Doge, he wants that data to steal it so he can build his big old Batman surveillance machine.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that he absolutely targeted organizations and pieces of the government, parts of the government that were investigating him for all kinds of terrible things. I would put tax evasion right at the top of that fucking list. Would you not? Put that at the
it's
top
not
of the
only
list.
not
So
only
wouldn't you want your guy as the head of the IRS? If you're like, I've evaded billions in taxes, I should probably put my guy there. And the fact that a bureaucrat, an unelected bureaucrat, a special government employee, was allowed to pick
crazy.
the IRS director, and the fact that it worked for 72 hours is unbelievable to me. The other part that's unbelievable is that Scott Bessent had no idea. Now, Scott Bessent is a very rich man. He's worth about $1 billion. Lived in a Barbie house, a Barbie replica house for a long time. I don't know if you know this. Had a house built. He's like, I want a house to look like Barbie because my young girlfriend loves Barbies.
Girlfriend? Really?
Yeah. I'm not even joking. Girlfriend or wife?
No girlfriend. No girl.
Girlfriend.
No girl.
Not a girl or boyfriend?
Maybe more
Does
likely.
Does he swim on that side of the?
I don't know for sure.
I'm sure you do. I
don't know for sure. I don't know for sure.
Well, the person he was with loved Barbie, so he built this big Barbie
what do you
house.
think? So what do you think? What do you think, boy or girl?
My stereotypical assumptions, they need to stop, don't they? I apologize. But you literally got two morons deciding who's going to lead the Internal Revenue Service, and the moron that didn't get elected, the moron with no experience, the moron being investigated for tax fraud got to pick the dude. It is fucking incredibly funny to me. And again, I go back to this. Are we surprised? No. I mean, it's not the first fight I've heard. There was a leak that came out of the cabinet where one cabinet member he was like, don't tell anybody I said this. But that has to be, Elon Musk has to be the most annoying piece of shit I have ever met in my life.
He's got into fights with everybody there.
Yeah.
He's got into fights with Rubio. He's got into fights with Duffy, who's the transportation secretary. Now he's getting into fights with Bessent.
Called him names. He apparently called Duffy a pedophile, kind of because he wouldn't do what he wanted. Kind of like the guy that tried to save those Thai kids from that cave ended up doing it. And he's like, we can't use your little cool submarine because it's not going to work. He's like, you're a pedophile. Like it's his go-to.
It's he goes. He's a child. He's like he's not developed in a way that would make it seem normal. Like he uses these insults like retard or stuff like that all the time, which makes no sense. The guy that he picked, by the way, for those 72 hours in the head of the IRS position was a guy named Gary Shapley, who's the guy who basically helped bring the Hunter Biden tax case forward. He's the guy who's so in bed with Russia or whomever needed to stir up the Hunter Biden exercise that he got promoted from being just like a regular IRS investigator all the way to the very top position because he was able to bring the Hunter Biden tax evasion case to fruition. So there you go. It's just all
so corrupt.
It's one big corrupt circle jerk. It really is. The guy in the pink house, though, the pink mansion house, he gets to win at the end of the day. Falkender, his deputy, becomes the IRS chief for at least a moment because we'll see how long he lasts. It's been longer than 72 hours so far.
He's crushing it.
As we're saying goodbye to Elon Musk, this is story number 2 because why not stay with him for a little bit? People are really questioning his ability to do math. There's a column today in the Post, I think, which was basically saying this guy promised us $2 trillion in cuts, and he's delivering $150 billion, if that. Well, hopefully that's what he says he'll deliver at the end of his thing. So one analyst put it this way: it's like you're asking his real estate agent to find you a $300,000 house, and then you're being shown a place that's being listed at $4 million. I mean, you're like, you can't afford that. But so this is the guy who's meant to be a genius, right? Like he's meant to be a super genius, super capable. And so people are asking, does he really know anything that he's talking about? Like there are people now looking at his whole Mars plan and they're like, does he really know how far Mars is? Does he actually understand how far away it is, or we may not be able to get there in his lifetime? And apparently he doesn't. He's got this kind of science fiction-y way of thinking of the world. He thinks like it's all about science fiction, only without the fiction part. He thinks it's all real, but it's not. Mm-hmm. And so people are asking, is this guy even together enough? Never mind, is he a genius? Is he even together enough to do basic math? So he put us all through this horrendous Doge experience so he can generate all this data for himself. At the end of the day, he's not even making us 1/13 of the amount that he said he was going to make us back of his savings.
2 trillion?
2 trillion
He
was
said?
2 trillion was his promise, initial promise.
Then he's going to come in and say he managed to save 150 billion.
Yeah.
And that number will be a lie.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be, not only did we not cancel any programs, we just stopped spending on things like the trans LGBTQ suicide hotline, which
And
gets
the
1.4.
And the avian flu. Yeah,
avian flu people and the Ebola people
Yeah.
and the nuclear secrets people, which they all had to hire back.
Yeah.
It's a fraud. It's been an operation, a joke. It's been a distraction on purpose for all the reasons, all the terrible fucking reasons that you don't want to believe. It is a data capture exercise. It is a load your basket with as much information and data as you possibly can to sell it to the highest bidder to build a program that surveils people. That's what he's been doing.
Get all the investigators off your back, so they're investigating you and your company, so you can get all the contracts you want, no problem. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Get rid of the guys at the SEC. Get rid of, the Department of Transportation people. Unload any department or government department that may or may not be investigating you or has lawsuits against you. And keep in mind, at one point, I think there were like 60 open investigations into Elon Musk and his companies, his variety of companies and his insider trading. And he literally went after all of those first. So. Yeah. Anything that he tells you at the end of his term as Doge will be a lie. It already is a lie. He lied about, when he said there were 2-year-olds getting Social Security. Well, that's because their fucking parents died, and he failed to remember that. He failed to kind of bring that up, that, when your parents die, you get their Social Security checks for X amount of years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that he's done, everything that he said has been to be able to give him and everybody associated with Doge cover so that they can steal your personal information and sell it to the highest bidder. That is all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else. This was never about cost savings. That was the umbrella that they used so that they could cover it up, so that everybody would look the other way. Don't worry, we're just getting. And then they come out and they tell people we discovered $2 billion in this, we discovered $20 billion in that. And, 140-year-old woman was being paid Social Security. Where's that money going? And he called it a target-rich environment. All of that's a lie. Yeah. All of that's a lie.
There was no waste, fraud, and abuse. The waste, fraud, and abuse never existed. I mean, actually, what we're finding out is the American government was very well run, where there was not a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, which is why they couldn't find it. So, unlike Russia and all these other countries where there was a lot of that, in this country there isn't, because you got democracy. Imagine that, checks and balances, oversight to get all the things that you need.
And dude, and when you want to do something you shouldn't be able to do, and there is no metric for you to be able to do it, you invent a cause. Yeah. Case in point, you want to invade Canada. Mm-hmm. You threaten them with an invasion because of some fucking made up fentanyl deal and Mexican cartels that have taken over the country. This is the Tompkins Strait, school of thought, where it's like invent something that isn't real, tell everybody that it's a threat to them, lie and tell everybody how bad the threat is and how many people are dying, and then you can go get them. And that's exactly what Doge is. Exactly the same.
I've been doing a series called The New Feudalism on narrative.org, narrative.org. I'm about to launch the next 2 parts of this series, where we find out exactly what the next thing is that you need to be scared about with all that data. And clearly, he has said this out publicly, but no one has really picked this up yet, is what he's intending to do is put the entire government on a blockchain that's based on his Doge blockchain. So he is going to basically have the entire US government with all its trillions and trillions of dollars running on his technology, and then every little thing that happens in that chain of government, whether it's it's Social Security, whether it's your Medicaid payments, whether it's whatever, it's all going to be micropaid to him through crypto. Yep. This is where it's all happening from. This is what his goal is. So there's you'll see this in the next 2 parts.
Which is the interest in getting rid of fiat money, which is the interest in destroying the actual Federal Reserve and replacing it with digital tokens, crypto.
Yes. Yeah. This whole idea of this guy named Yarvin, who's this guru who's busy telling everyone he's a neo-conservative guru, I guess is what they call him.
Oh, yeah, Curtis Yarvin?
Yeah.
What a fucking loser that guy is.
That's not why they're doing it. Not because they've got some guru giving them some ideologies. They're doing it because they want to get rich off crypto. And they're on the path to getting rich off crypto. This whole mess is about crypto. Everything that we've been through in the last year or so, is about crypto. It's about getting these billionaires that will otherwise be poverty stricken because they've spent so much time and so much money on crypto, so that they need to make it work. They need it to be the currency of the world. They need it to be the thing that works. So they're willing to overthrow the entire U.S. government and the whole U.S. way of being, the entire American life, in order to make crypto the thing, even if it tanks everybody else completely, even if it destroys everything that America's built in 250 years. They don't care. They want crypto to be the currency and blockchain to be the technology that it sits on. Because then, guess what? They're untouchable. They're at the top of the chain, literally, and they are untouchable. No one could do a thing to them.
They own all the reserves.
Everything.
They own all the fees, all the transaction fees. They own everything,
all the money,
platforms,
and all the data.
Yeah.
So they become the new oligarchy, and everybody else becomes a servant, a serf, you name it to them. It's no longer a case of you being an American citizen with equal rights and all those things. You're just beholden to the gods of Elon Musk and Meta and all these other guys who've ponied up all this time for crypto. So it's a mess.
Sleep tight tonight, America.
Well, I mean, don't hate me. I'm just the messenger.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, listen, it's really it's reversible. We can still stop it. It's
Ron Elliott in the chat. He's like, so what's the good news? Oh, Ron, the good news is that there's more of us than them, my man. Don't you worry about that. And everybody needs to remember that all the time. There's more of us than them. When all of us decide that the few of them are not good enough for us anymore, that's when the good news arrives, friends.
The good news is also there's truth in power, empowering truth, whichever way you look at it. And I think the more we share what's really going on with people, the more you share what you know is going on with people, and it's verified and it's factual and it's well researched, the stronger we all are, because that is the one thing that they are terrified of, is the truth coming out. You can see it in their lies every day. You can see it in how much they pander to the media every day in these press conferences. They just want to gaslight you so they can make their billions. But if the truth gets out, they would be terrified. And this is part of what we're doing, part of what I've been doing for 8 years, part of what you've been doing as well. This is about getting the truth to everybody so you can act in it. So that's good news. You're getting the truth. How about there?
Yeah, there you go.
Story nice. Number one, talk about not such good news, is so Trump this is the story about Ukraine. President Trump announced a very good chance, he says, again, for a Ukraine-Russia ceasefire with new U.S. proposal. The plan includes recognizing Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea, which would be illegal in both the world's eyes and in the Ukrainian constitution eyes, but nevertheless, he thinks it's going to happen. Trump called Russia's restraint. This is the amazing thing. I don't know if you saw this quote today. He said that the fact that the concession they're giving in, that Russia's giving, is that they're not taking the whole country. He says that's a big concession, that they're not taking the entire Ukraine. I don't even know. I don't know. I have no words.
You can't write this stuff.
No, you can't.
You can't fathom. Well, you can, because you're going through it. The turn on Ukraine, and I'm going to follow it up with another deadly night of bombing in Kyiv by Russia, to which Moscow sent 75 missiles, 145 drones to Ukraine yesterday. That's a lot.
12 civilians died.
Yeah, 12 civilian, over 110 injured, bunch of kids. And, when he's not shitposting Zelensky, calling him a dictator, he's also not saying anything to Russia. This was the strongest statement we've gotten from Donald Trump on Russia, sworn enemy of the free world. I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv, he put out on Truth Social. Not necessary. Very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let the peace deal get done. Let's get the peace deal done, Trump wrote on Truth Social. He's a Russian asset.
Yeah.
He there's no other way to go. There's no other conversation to have. There's no other, well, he did this and driving the point home. We've driven it home. The free world is driving it home. Donald Trump is driving the point home every day. I am a Russian asset. So what he says every time he opens up his mouth about the conflict in Ukraine and about the illegal invasion of Ukraine by a dictatorial terrorist state. and Vladimir Putin, the world's greatest dictator, a genocidal fucking nightmare. And Donald Trump is so interested in being in that orbit still. He still can't bring himself after 10 or 11 people were murdered and hundreds of people were injured after they sent 70 missiles and 145 drones into Ukraine, into Kyiv, into apartment buildings, hospitals, and schools yesterday.
All he could say is, stop,
Vladimir. And then try to incentivize him by saying, don't you realize how rich we're going to get? There's no talk of the cost of human life. There's no talk of the invasion of Ukraine. In fact, the opposite. Last week, he blamed Zelensky for starting a war he said he couldn't finish when he was asked why Zelensky was trying to buy missiles. And he's like, I'm not giving him any missiles. You shouldn't start a war with a... I mean, he's trying to literally reframe reality and history, recent history that we are keenly familiar with, and it's an insult to the intelligence of anybody who's paid any attention to the war in Ukraine, to the invasion of Ukraine by a genocidal country. And you don't need to ask questions anymore about what's he doing, because this is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's trying to destroy Ukraine. He's trying to help Russia. He has gone out of his way to not say anything bad about the biggest mass murderer in the fucking world. There is no other conversation to have other than let's find out all the things we need to know about why Donald Trump is so dead set on helping Vladimir Putin and how he became the Manchurian candidate, the Russian asset in the White House that sits there and shits on hundreds of years of democratic sacrifice of the men and women in Ukraine, of the men and women who fought in World War I, men and women who fought and died in World War II to beat back fascism. I had a conversation with Steve Schmidt today from the Warning Podcast. This is what we talked about. We talked about the 3 countries that are forever embossed on the beaches of Normandy. The United States, Canada, Great Britain. On another one, there's France, but generally it's those 3. We're a sovereign nation. So just like America was a sovereign nation, that sovereign nation is now aligning with a dictatorial empirical nation to destroy its allied sovereign nation and partner in Ukraine. It is beyond the pale that there is any other conversation to me other than, okay, you fucking Russian asset. Now let's dig into why. Nobody's willing to do that. Nobody's willing to play those cards. Nobody's willing to do that investigation. And we don't really need an investigation because we already know.
See it, yeah.
But it would be really nice if someone put a definitive piece together that outs this man for what he is, which is an agent of Vladimir Putin. Let's go. Put him out. I want to see.
But you know what I want to say? Just the way this normally would work, by the way, just if everyone wants to like see how far we've gone in our normal trajectory. Normally, in an event like this, the president of the United States would come out in the briefing room and say, we strongly condemn the attack on the innocent civilians of Ukraine yesterday and the 12 innocent lives that were lost and the hundreds of people that were injured.
It would be a big deal.
And we are devastated that our supposed partners in this effort to try and create peace in this region are turning their face in all our efforts. And therefore, we are pulling out of any efforts to help Russia achieve their goals. We're
going to stop talking to them.
Stop talking to them. We're going to introduce a bunch of sanctions against them for doing what they did. And we are not going to allow this behavior to continue. They're killing innocent kids and people in the streets of Kyiv, because this should not be happening. And that's the way a normal president would come out and do it. They would express their condolences to the Ukrainian people, and they'd walk away. They would not sit there and humor this guy by saying it's a concession that he's not taking the entire country. That is not...
Just be happy he's not taking it all.
Yeah, that's not what we do in the world. That is not how the world operates currently. It's not how we've done it for decades. We don't just take over countries because we feel like it. We don't just wake up in the morning and decide.
Well, because it's bad and it's wrong.
Yeah, and we don't want people to die. We don't want innocent people to die all the time. We want to treat people with respect and equality, and we don't need to do this. There's other ways to achieve our goals through trade and respect and the normal way you do things, but not for Vladimir Putin. So that's why, this guy, is exactly what you say is an asset. And I'll show you those articles. I'll send them to you. I've got plenty.
Yeah, do it. Let's cross post those. We need to get them in the hands of people that matter, like our
Actually,
listeners.
good point.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on this thing trying to make sense of the world. And as we're trying to make sense of it by talking it out, I think some source material might be nice, and there's no one better at it than Zev. Go and subscribe to Zev Shalev's Substack. It is narrative.org. Go there today. He's got a great deal. I think 33% off an annual membership. I'm doing the same thing on mine. Also, I've lowered the lifetime membership. So please go and have a look at that. Love for you to become a member of our Substack because we love doing this. We love
Blundell.
We love trying to make sense.
Substack.com, by the way.
Yeah, real simple. DeanBlundell.substack.com. I don't have any fancy names for my stuff. It's just me.
Well, I'm not fancy. Dean Blundell's
narrative.org, and you've misspelled it on purpose, and it's really kitschy and cool. I don't have that. You're cooler than me.
Yeah. I came up with that name before any of this happened. Like this was like in 2015. I thought, well, that's a good name, respelling of narrative. And I registered a domain name, but I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And then, 2016 hit and I was like, I should start a blog because I want to practice my log form writing. I'm going to do it on this rush on Trump. I'm going to do it on Trump because he's coming into power. Just by accident. I had no idea that it would take me down this 8 years of investigation and basically take over my entire life. And that narrative itself, the name, would come to mean something because, it's all about narrative discourse. This is really an information war and it's about narrative fighting. So, that's just a weird way the world works, isn't it?
Dude, it's just an awesome name. You're like a branding god, actually. I'd probably put that right at the top of the list. Branding god. Like you told me the other day, you're like, don't call your daily newsletter. It's like a roundup the day's stories from before.
Yeah.
People need to know about, maybe a look ahead. It's called the Daily Dean Brief. You said, why do you call it that? Why don't you just call it the Daily Dean? Guess what it's called now? Daily Dean. I took your advice.
It's a good name, man.
Because you're a branding god.
Oh, I don't think that, but that's a good name. But I'll take that as a moniker. Sure.
As you should.
That is the show tonight. On Monday, because I'll be doing this tomorrow with Olga, I hope, if she's around. But otherwise, it's Monday at 3 p.m. that we'll be doing the show. And we're really excited to do it at that time because it means a lot more of you can watch. Plus, it means we get to see each other early in the day. But it'll be the same great show earlier in the day at 3 p.m. on Monday on Substack. And we'll see you then for FiveStack. Thanks for being here tonight, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, all. Bye.